Today we're talking about what's in my camera bag. So for a little bit of context, I run a commercial and corporate production company. I also freelance as a director of photography, shooting narrative and documentary work. And so some of this gear wouldn't necessarily make sense if you were exclusively shooting YouTube videos. Also to note, I'm in a very small market, and so there's no rental houses here and very few pros with their own gear. And so I pretty much have to own a little bit of everything to be able to make the videos that I make professionally. So considering the variety of things that I shoot, the camera that seemed to make sense for me at the time I bought it was the Sony FS5. Now, all by itself, this camera is pretty much just an A7S with a Super 35 sensor and some professional inputs. But once you buy the $500 RAW upgrade, then this camera can output 12-bit DCI RAW at 4K up to 60 frames per second. I have mine rigged up with the Atomos Shogun to accept that signal. My favorite thing about this camera is the variable internal ND filters, and I really wish every camera had these. It's great, it's just one wheel on the side, you just scroll, and it's just like a variable ND filter on the front of your lens. Now, I come from a photography background, and so for my second camera, I wanted something that could shoot full frame stills and shoot great video. So I went with the Sony a7 III. Everyone knows about this camera, so I'm not gonna spend much time on it, but there's two things I wanted to mention. Number one, the eye autofocus is game changing. Number two, this camera isn't really meant for a production environment. The 8-bit 420 codec just doesn't hold up when you want to push the image at all, and you can't shoot as flat as I would like. For events and YouTube videos, this camera is amazing, but not really in a professional production environment. So the lens that's filming me right now is the Tamron 28-75. Now, kind of one of those things that everyone knows about this lens. It was so popular, especially with the Sony a7 III. The reason being, it's just a great mirrorless lens. It's much cheaper than the G Master, and it's even lighter, and so it just makes for a more compact mirrorless setup. It's not a perfect lens optically, but for video, we often don't really care if it's a perfect optical lens. I would definitely recommend this as a YouTube lens or as a general everyday shooter for stills or video. Next up is my kit of Rokinon Cine DS lenses. Now, I've been very impressed with these lenses overall, especially for the price. Now, optically, these lenses aren't perfect, but for video, we don't need them to be or even want them to be. I like the flares out of them, and the usability is great. Having the T-stops on the side, they're all fast. Okay, next up is the Nikon F-mount 24-70 2.8. I have had this lens since I was shooting Nikon for photos, and I've meant to sell it so many times, but every time I'm about to sell it, a shoot will come up where I realize that I need a versatile zoom lens that is not focused by a wire. Optically, this is still the best lens that I have, and so I think I'm going to actually start using it more than I have been. The small HD focus. This is hands down my favorite monitor. Working on sets, I've used monitors that are $3,000 and monitors that are $100 and everything in between. This is just the best overall combination of price, quality, and usability. And of course, it comes in an SDI version and an HDMI version, so yeah, I would definitely recommend this monitor. Manfrotto 536. This is my super versatile cinema tripod. It goes up to 80 inches and drops down to 10 inches. It's made of carbon fiber, so it keeps things relatively light, while still supporting, I believe it's up to 50 pounds. It has a 100mm bowl with a 75mm adapter, so it can accept standard cinema fluid heads. Currently I have a 502 head on there, and so it's fine. Oh, my gimbal. I have the original Moza Air. It's fine if you need a quick shot with a light camera, but it is not all day reliable. DJI's stuff is generally the best balance between quality and price, so that's what I recommend. The Aperture 300D, I have the original version, and I really like it. It's the light that is lighting me right now. It is 5500 Kelvin, and you will find a use for all of that output compared to, say, the 120D. The only downside about this light is that the ballast has a fan in it that's very loud and cannot be turned off. I currently have like all the pillows I own piled around it, making like a pillow fort to keep it quiet enough so I can film this without that extra background noise. Next up is the 120D. Now, if you're trying to save some cash, go with the Mark I. That's what I still have. But the downside of this is it's 6,000 Kelvin as opposed to 5,500 Kelvin. So if you're trying to match to other lights, the Mark II is probably the way to go. It also is a little more efficient and stuff. But if you're trying to save some cash and getting a perfect match isn't what you need, the Mark I is a great option. My audio recorder of choice is the Zoom F4. It's got super clean preamps and 4 channels of audio, which is probably all you'll ever need. If I were to buy again today, I would probably buy the Mix Pre 3 or 6 Mark II because of the 32-bit float audio, but is it worth my time to upgrade right now? No, not at all. This is a great product. The shotgun mic I've been using for the last couple of years is the Rode NTG2. Now, if you're going to use this mic, you need a recorder with a lot of clean gain, like the Zoom F4, F8, or the Mix Pre series from Sound Devices. I know from personal experience that this microphone does not work well with the Zoom H4n or the Tascam DR40. Now, I've done some testing with the Rode NTG3, which is the more professional version of this microphone, and I just don't love how it sounds with my voice, and so I've just stuck with this microphone. I know it's probably just my amateur audio ears liking the more bass resonance in my voice as opposed to the NTG giving a more accurate representation, but I like how it sounds, so I'm sticking with it. My wireless lavaliers of choice are the Sennheiser G4s. I really love these. I think it's worth the premium price for kind of an industry standard. I know they're not used by professional sound guys, but for the rest of us, they're pretty much the most pro that we would go. And they do the job great. They're super reliable, and that's what you need. My audio bag, it's the Orca OR28. It's a recent purchase, and I just love it. For the longest time, I've been running audio out of an old camera bag, and for some reason, spending the $130 on this bag was completely worth it. I just love it. One last accessory that I want to talk about that I really like is the Noga Cine arm. I think this is the size medium. It's pretty expensive for just a piece of articulating metal, but I've found that the cheaper versions just don't hold up the monitor or whatever you're attaching to it that well, and so I'm really pleased with this one, and I would call it an industry standard. Okay, so that's my base production kit. I have a ton more accessories and whatnot, but I didn't really think it was necessary to share those. If you have any questions or comments or just want to talk shop, feel free to drop those notes in the comments. I will definitely respond to them. And if you want to see more videos on cinematography, running a production company, and just making better videos, feel free to subscribe. I'm uploading weekly at this point, so I'll see you next week.